Tuning you in now to the LBX Show with your host, Brandon Wiley. Brought to you by the LBX Collective, your community to connect, engage, and inspire.
All right. Well, welcome everybody to the LBX Show for February 15th, 2026. I'm your host, Brandon Wiley, and we have a really interesting show lined up for you today. So we will dive right into a pretty brief news you should know. And I'm just going to do a little bit of review from the FEC summit that we just had and then talk about one other thing. And then Randy White from White Hutchinson will join us on a guest gab. Kevin and I join together with Randy, and we're going to talk about some of the audience and guest changes and trends that are taking place in the industry. And then lastly, we have a really robust and extended open and shut with Kevin Williams to review all the opening and closing trends from the last week, but there's some really interesting discussion that happens throughout that. And so definitely give that a full listen. And then, you know what, we'll wrap up. So that is our show for today. First things up, some news you should know. All right, so the FEC Summit for 2026 for IAAPA just wrapped up this last week, and it was an excellent, fun blast. Had a great time hanging out with everybody, and man, it's crazy that it just feels like it it didn't happen just last week. I guess I didn't really talk about it the week before. But we've got just a couple of pictures here. So we had some good trips out on to Fat Cats and to Pecan Lake and to KTR, and so that was a lot of fun. But you know what always makes the FEC Summit so freaking special is how much time you just get to spend with everybody. So it's not like your standard expo where you're just rushing from one booth to the next and one education session to the next. Like there was some really good keynote speaker in the morning, some good workshop there. But then the second day had some great education as well, some operator panels and some other discussion. And so just overall really good education component. But like, again, what makes it so special is hanging out with everybody in the industry and meeting new people. So obviously there's good friends here. So, we did had the mini golf and long drive competition, and then the costume contest Sunday night. And so yours truly won that one, dressed up, as you can see there, like Otto the caddy, basically the original caddy for Happy Gilmore in the first Happy Gilmore. And there's my buddy Nick dressed up as Happy Gilmore as well. And so, then we obviously had to Mike Wincup and I from Galaxy Multi Rides and also Do the Beach had to have our go-kart race, our annual, what has now become an annual go-kart race to see, who could eke it out. And again, got him right at the very last second, 0.3 seconds. So suck it, Mike. All right. Anyway, I have that for him. I can do that. I can have this for him. I can do that. I can give him a hard time. But anyway, he's a great sport. It's so much fun to race with and hang out. And then, had a great condo unit on the golf course. It had a great fire pit and had everybody coming out and just hanging out, a big group, whoever, was invited to come by. And, we're mixing drinks, and Nick and I are mixing drinks there and having a great time with everybody hanging out. So again, that's really what makes FEC Summit so special. It is probably now one of my favorite events that happen throughout the year. I would say with the exception of the North American Summit, which takes place every other year now. But the North American Summit, what used to be the leadership conference as well, like it's always about hanging out with people and getting to know them, building deeper relationships, and lots of really great things come from that. So anyway, if you haven't been to FEC Summit, highly recommend you do that next year and get going. So, all right, last thing in news you should know, coming up in just a few weeks, March 16th to 19th. So in 1 month, basically, we've got the Amusement Expo. And it is, they're talking about tomorrow's industry, today's platform. Not sure what that means. I think maybe, but it says next is now. So, okay. Anyway, whatever. It's going to be a great show. It's going to be a great expo, regardless of whether or not I truly understand what that slogan is. I mean, okay. There'll be some new things to check out. And, and Adam Pratt's going to be talking about that next week, more on the show as well during Arcade Corner to talk about some of the amusement pieces that are going to be there. And we're going to be, we've got some announcements coming up, Kevin and I, regarding excuse me, Amusement Expo. Oh my gosh, he is speaking on those on that day, or on March 16th, about the social entertainment. So that's going to be a great session there with Kevin on the first day. I think it's around 10 a.m. in the main auditorium. So definitely want to check that out. And then I will be coming in on the 17th, hanging out for the main expo days, 18th, 19th, and then sticking around probably one day longer just to go and see a bunch of the attractions that are around the area. So maybe we can all roll together and find a way to do that too and check things out. So if you're, going to be there, come find me. I'll be on the show floor walking around and doing some interviews and everything else. And so it's just going to be a good time. And again, stay tuned for hopefully an announcement pretty soon. All right. That is some news you should know. We'll see you on the other side. All right. Well, coming up after the break, we've got Randy White joining Kevin Williams and myself for a guest gab. White Hutchinson, which is Randy is a co-founder of, is recognized as one of the world's leading multidisciplinary feasibility, design, production, and consulting firms. And they put out a fantastic research newsletter a couple of times, probably about once a month, maybe once every other month, called the Leisure E-Newsletter. I could not recommend this enough. If you haven't ever subscribed, go to whitehutchinson.com. Again, that is whitehutchinson.com. You can see that right down there at the bottom, and highly recommend you put that, you subscribe to that newsletter, get it. It's phenomenal research, phenomenal information. They gather research and data from a lot of different sources. And so he always has great insights. I've been reading his newsletter for 10 years now. He's been writing that newsletter for much longer than that. That's just how long I've been reading the newsletter, and wish I had found it much earlier. But anyway, you can go to whitehutchinson.com. And yeah, coming up after the break, we'll dive right into the guest gab. Intercard is the only cashless system designed, developed, and manufactured all under one roof. They introduced cashless technology to the amusement industry and have been leading the way for over 30 years. Cashless systems from Intercard increase customer spending, guest satisfaction, and boost revenues by up to 30%. Intercard is so proud to be serving the amusement industry, and if you aren't already part of their global family of customers, they hope you will become one soon. All right. Well, hey guys, Randy, Kevin,
hello.
Good to have you on. Randy, this is your first guest gab. Good to have you on the show.
Pleased to be here.
Yeah, it's awesome. Awesome. All right. Well, let's just dive right in. Obviously, there's tons of changes coming down the line, over the last few years in how the audiences are shifting, what their desire for different experiences are. And so let's just dive into it. I mean, Randy, maybe we can just kick it off. Like, how do you feel like the audience is changing and has been changing over the last few years?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that have changed. First of all, we got a baby bust. We have less children. In fact, in the US, the peak was 2007. The birth rate's declined since then. We've missed out on 10 million children. So children are becoming less and less significant as part of the market.
You could kind of say that the kidult has taken over there.
Yeah, no, that's very fair, actually.
Yeah. Number two, we're getting a much more educated audience. Right now, about half of households in at least the US are headed by somebody with a bachelor's or higher degree. That's a significant increase over the last 10 years. We're spending more time at home. This is partly driven by the pandemic, but right now our data shows that people are spending 50 minutes more a day at home than they were in 2019. Spending on live events is up by about 40% since 2019. So they're shifting their preferences. Spending at what we call parks and museums, which include location-based entertainment, is a broad category, is down about 10% since 2019. Obviously, because they're shifting to live and other events. In terms of community-based, location-based entertainment and museums, people are spending 1.5 hours less a month at these venues than they were pre-pandemic. Then we have the whole thing about foodies. It's really a broader category. We call it food adventures because a lot of people don't post, but they have all these foodie behaviors. That's becoming higher and higher. In fact, we now have Generation Alpha as foodies. They're being influenced by their millennial parents. A lot of them prefer sushi over chicken nuggets, just as a real quick example.
Yeah, for sure.
The whole definition of what we call family time has changed. Gen X parents would tolerate taking their kids to Chuck E. Cheese, although it was just kind of a miserable experience. Now parents want to go places that work for them, and they drag the children along. And the alternative is if they go somewhere, they want to, if it's not an adult venue, they want to do things with the children, not watch the children do things. So, and I'll give you 2 quick examples. You can look at Topgolf or you can look at Dave & Buster's. They don't have a single game in there for kids. They're really 100% adult oriented. 1/3 of Dave & Buster's customers are families with kids. If you target the adults, you still get the families. The problem is if you target the families, you don't get the adults. And actually, the adults, the bigger market. I don't know. I hate the term family entertainment center because it says so many developers on the wrong course. The biggest market demographically are adults, and they're the bigger spenders. So what's happened is people are now seeking new and unique experiences. Repeat appeal has declined. We have so many options and so many things to do. Why do same old, same old? And this has been validated by PGAV studies we've done, a lot of research we've looked at. And then what is also very significant, we've had a decline in alcohol consumption. Roughly half of adults do no longer drink. And the ones who drink are drinking less. And many times they'll go out and do non-alcoholic or mix. I saw a recent term, zebra group. They're like zebras with 2 different colors. So, I mean, that's some of the things we've identified in all our research.
Yeah, interesting. Kevin, it looked like you were going to add something there.
I was going to say, Randy, at the moment regarding Topgolf, we know that Topgolf's management are looking at some entertainment additions. They've been playing around with the concept of simulators, which I know aren't aimed at children, but they've also been looking at adding mini golf components to the Topgolf.
Yeah.
It's important for our audience to understand, Randy, how you get your hands on this information, if you could, please.
We do a lot of research. It's amazing, at least currently, our government here does all kind of research on spending and time use and all, and you can delve into that. Plus, there's a lot of independent companies doing research we get our hands on. Incidentally, on Topgolf, I would like to mention the majority of their sales are food and beverage.
Yes.
And that's a shift we're seeing in a lot of venues.
And away from alcohol as well. Yeah. So their food, their shareable, and their beer has gone through quite the ringer. It is interesting how that's dropped. Sorry, Brandon, please.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's maybe a good transition, because if food and beverage is one of the key revenue drivers, if not the revenue driver for a venue like Topgolf, it's so massively overbuilt for what they actually deliver and the number of people who actually come and play there or visit. What implications in this audience shift, this buying shift, this really experience consumption shift, we'll call it? How does that impact ultimately somebody who's in the family entertainment business looking to get into the location-based entertainment or experience industry? And what are the implications ultimately for that? And what are some of the things you think that they should be thinking about as a result of this type of shift?
Well, we call it social gaming. I can give you a whole thing about competitive socializing. A lot of those venues, competition is not social. Top Golf is social gaming because they combine easy games to play where people take turns while they're simultaneously eating food and beverage. And what this is all about is that people are looking for social, highly social experiences. And I think this was triggered a lot by obviously the pandemic when we were isolated. So you need to look at creating social experiences. And the other thing we're seeing is you can't base things on attractions anymore. That formula doesn't work. You can have some attractions, but you have to mix in what we call programming. You have to have special events. You have to have music. You got to have limited time offerings on food and beverage because repeat appeal isn't there anymore. People are looking for new, unique experiences.
Yeah.
Does that sort of answer your question a little?
Yeah, well, I think it certainly does. I think the difficulty for that, right, is what if somebody needs, or if they're building their venue based on that repeatability, or based on something that is, well, all right. So let me back up. Let's talk a little bit about the we'll call it social gaming. Although I think gaming has a negative connotation at some level, at least in the U.S. Given around like casino, gambling, gaming, that kind of thing. But we'll call it like,
or social games, you can call it.
Social games. That's fine. Yeah, let's call it social games. But in that scenario, we run into and we see a lot of the types of I'll call them attractive experiences or venues that are a single experience, right? It's darts, or it's shuffleboard, or it's clay shooting, or whatever, or it's some other sort of simulator, and then some really great F&B. Typically, right? One could argue that's the second attraction, but it's also could maybe be the primary driver. But if we're trying to drive repeatability, if we're also trying to create new experiences every time, how should we be thinking about that type of social gameplay versus something that has maybe a broader mix to be able to appeal to more people, or to be able to appeal to more people over multiple times?
There's a basic premise in marketing that most people don't understand. When you try to be a little bit of something for everyone, you don't end up being special to anyone. The markets are big enough to focus on a particular market. You'll always get the secondary market, just like Dave and Buster's does, But the point is, you got to have more than attractions in food and beverage today. You need to have music, or you got to have special events, or you got to have date nights, and you got to program all these things in to drive that repeat attendance, And it's also
so it comes down to programming, is what you're saying. So
yes.
Programming, special events, that kind of thing, added experiences, enhanced experiences, seasonality. We talk about seasonality often,
right?
Bringing different experiences based on seasons even.
Let me tell you about the power of seasonality. We work in agritourism, which is an amazing industry. These are the farmers, okay? Mm-hmm. We have clients who in 8 weeks do more than 200,000 paid admissions and gross $3 and $4 million. That's more than most of these venues do in a whole year.
Yeah.
But it's the seasonality of it. And what these farmers are doing is they're now going back and running other festivals and things. I mean, people are going to live events. They're going to festivals. They're going to music concerts. These are different every time. And that's the new competition. That's part of the issue out there. How do you become more like them versus this old formula that so many people keep replicating, which is almost out of date totally, is just pure attraction based.
And that is the key, isn't it? We're talking about, in a lot of cases, experiences in the entertainment side that are showing their age a little bit. They haven't really been upgraded for the new audience. And to be blunt, some of our brethren in the amusement sector would find it difficult to embrace an older audience, having spent the last generations vending redemption tickets. Yeah. Just one thing for me, Randy, I wave the flag of competitive socializing as a term just to get people to think about something other than amusement. But I agree with you that social experiences, I'll go with another E, shall we say, the social experience market does seem to be something that's happening. Hospitality, entertainment, socializing. But please go on.
The other thing we need to be aware of, this book just came out.
Oh, yeah.
And what's happened is this educated audience is looking for transformative experiences. They are not so looking for entertainment. We're moving from fun to fulfillment. So they're looking for classes and cocktail things and learning. That's the new powerful attraction. And I've seen this with some of our clients where they build some of this in to an event, and all of a sudden they start getting a much older market. They're getting more adults, and they're getting much higher spend.
The experience is key now. You know, we've had the publications talking about the experience economy. I just read a report from the new head of Walt Disney that is pushing the experience and the immersion. Our audience wants to take something away more than just some redemption tickets in their pockets.
Yeah. So, I mean, some of those components still work if they're mixed in with these other things.
Yes.
So you mentioned Disney, right? So speaking of Disney, where does this is sort of a shift, but it's actually not. Like, where do you see IP coming into the mix, right? So you have dedicated IP venues, like obviously Disney at the large scale, Netflix House at the LBE scale, but in an individual venue, where do you see IP? Does IP even have any value for an independent owner operator of a location-based entertainment venue?
A lot of these heavy IP immersive venues that are popping up are in major markets. You know, in terms of the smaller operator, I don't see that as really key to the whole thing. Yeah. You know, it's a different market in a sense. You know, Disney is separate from some location-based entertainment venue in your local town.
Yeah, totally. I think the question is, right, we see a lot of, pinball aside, right? Pinball is different. Pinball, very heavy on the IP side. But if we're just talking amusements, amusement pieces and redemption gaming, we're seeing a lot of IP being overlaid over the top of potentially machines that have done well on their own that don't even need that IP layer. And yet, but it's almost as if they're saying, well, big basketball doesn't work anymore, so we need to layer some other IP on the exact same piece. And now you're paying more for it. So I'm just curious, like, do guests really even give a shit whether or not something is overlaid with some somewhat moderately recognizable IP versus something that just pays out tickets and is fun to play?
It probably gives them quicker identification or something. I think it has value in a game room. I would agree there that it makes sense. I don't know how you IP duck pin bowling or electronic darts.
I feel like somebody's going to try it. Yeah,
it's already been done.
right?
Yes, of course. Yeah, they wrap it. So they have digital screens going into my phygital bullywig at the moment. They have digital screens, and whatever the flavor of the month is, whatever the film advertising or the IP they're pushing, those digital screens around the duck pin bowling lanes are now promoting that particular branding. It's, as I like to call it, the wrapping paper. They are skinning these machines.
I think, I would agree with that, but I don't know if that really increases the attractiveness of people making a decision to go there. Exactly. They're just getting it overlaid on the experience once they're there.
Yeah. So, and I think that's maybe the point is, like, it's not an attractor. So why do it? I don't know. People are there. Like, why pay the extra fee for the license for that IP? If people are there to play together, to build experiences together, it doesn't matter whether it's duck pin bowling or duck pin bowling that looks like Angry Birds are falling down blocks.
Yeah. And I think also, and we're seeing this in agritourism, people are seeking real experiences, not these overly commercialized, slick things. They're looking for real experiences. So it can actually work against you.
Yeah,
it can feel alien. It can feel very alien. And there's also the danger of overload, where we have too much digital screen. We have too much IP being forced down someone's neck. Authentic is a phrase that we're going to hear a lot of,
Yes.
linked with experiential.
Yeah, and the whole movement with AI is pushing people towards
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I mean, I think you'll see that backlash, people looking for something real, physical, or phygital, like as Kevin likes to use as well, and authentic. So, Randy, as we kind of wrap up this guest gab, I mean, what is it that's keeping you enthralled, excited about what's coming down the line for you? What keeps you engaged and excited about what this industry is doing?
Well, we're just fascinated by what we're experiencing with our agritourism clients. I mean, these farmers are entrepreneurs like you wouldn't believe, and they're on trend with a lot of this stuff. I also love, obviously I'm into research. I'm a bit a nerd, and I love doing our newsletters. We do two of them. We do the leisure newsletter, and we do an agritourism today newsletter, which the point is, if you can write about something, you can talk about it and you can apply it. So it forces me into really understanding all these trends.
Yeah, excellent. Well, so then to that end, how would somebody be able to learn more about your organization, your research, get that newsletter, where they need to go to subscribe and be able to get that to their inbox?
Go right to our website, White Hutchinson, HUTCHINSON.com.
Excellent. Well, Randy, I hope this isn't the last time that we have a guest gab together. It's been great to have you on. Kevin, as always good to have you as a contributor, and we will definitely see you on the next guest gab.
Okay, thank you very much.
Power up your game floor with Arcades by Alan One. Whether it's perfectly pouring drinks in Dr. Pepper Soda Slam, grabbing official Butts on Things plushies, or defending cities from attack and missile command recharge, Alan One has something for every venue and arcade floor that will delight your guests. Each game is also enhanced with Major League Esports, a free app that tracks player top scores and brings guests back to your venue for more. Visit allen-1.com to learn more. That's allen-1.com. All right. Well, that was a great guest gab with Randy White from White Hutchinson. And again, you should sign up for his newsletter. It's his leisure e-newsletter on whitehutchinson.com. So get there, do it. And while you're at it, go to lbxcollective.com and sign up for ours. We send out multiple singing reports and entertainment social arenas, and there'll be a virtual arena coming out as well. And so there's a bunch of really great stuff that we send out on a regular basis. And again, lots of great, good content that you need to keep up in the industry. All right. Next up, we've got Open and Shut with Kevin Williams.
Hey, a big hello to everyone and welcome to the latest Open and Shut. I hope I find you well, Brandon.
Yeah, doing well. Just here in in foggy Florida, so ready to go.
On the road. Well, let's jump onto the road then.
Perfect.
And we are in February, as you may have all gathered, though it feels like we're still in December of last year. And one of the things that I need to clarify is the definitions that we're using here regarding the various openings and closings. So there are three kinds of operations that we're talking about here. Either venues that are in a soft opening phase, venues that have thrown their doors open and had their big party, and those venues that are fully open after going through a period of, so we say purdah, as in not reporting that they went through a soft opening period, and they are now fully operational. Become clearer why I have to make these definitions later on. And as you can see, Shazam, we're back to the big rollouts now. We're seeing venues and operations that we knew were in the works, and we ain't seen nothing yet. I always have to work a week ahead when compiling this, and I can already tell you that I'm halfway through compiling the next one of this. So we jump straight in, and our friends at GameState, we've touched upon them before in their relocation or redevelopment of previous sites. This is a brand new site that they've thrown the doors open in Arnhem, and it's their standard operation, part of their 19 facility chain as it is, and they'll be soon announcing their 20th very quickly. But it is a reinterpretation of the amusement mix for a European flavor, and it is borrowing very heavy from the Asian approach to a more FEC style amusement mix.
Excuse me. Yeah, this one is interesting. Do we know if they took over an existing location, if they were operating as another location and then they rebranded GameState? Because the reason I'm asking is I'm looking here on their Google business page for GameState Arnhem, and there are 315 Google reviews already, and they only opened just a few days ago. And so there's no way that they had 315 reviews. And if they did in the last few days, then the 3.5 stars that they've had over the course of those last few days is not a good start. So either they took over an existing facility and then they just renamed and took over the Google business profile, which may not have been a good idea given the current reviews. Or they are really suffering right out of the gate, which I don't think so, because we've covered GameState openings before, and it's a decent reinterpretation of I would say the kind of like arcade centered FEC.
It's a confusing situation. They have taken over existing facilities, part of a previous brand, as we talked about last year. They made a big noise about that, and these have been updated. But the way that they're promoting and marketing this is as if it's a brand new facility.
Right.
As you say, TripAdvisor reviews tell me that this is not just a brand new facility. The Google reviews tell me that this isn't a brand new facility, but everything else tells me it's brand new. So let's play the game of we need to go there and find out.
Yeah, and I would say that, look, if it isn't a brand new facility, that's fine. They've re-envisioned it, they've rebranded it, totally fine, but they should have created a new Google business profile in order to avoid the conflation of the poor operations and bad review that existed beforehand to their new operations and new design, everything else. And it's going to take some time now to have to lift out of that 3.5 stars. They're going to get hundreds of reviews at 5 stars to even begin to make a move versus just canceling out that old Google My Business and creating a new one versus taking over the old one.
It's a perfect example of why so many companies now suddenly working out that they need to have a marketing officer that is competitive, social, and entertainment focused, that they know how to launder their reviews. But again, we can touch upon that more in sound off. Moving on, and the Japanese market continues to emerge, evolve, and grow under the current conditions. And we have a brand new crane chain. Well, it's not brand new, but the interpretation and the presentation is being given an update. The location is interesting from my point of view, that it is popping into a retail unit. And again, it looks like it is a brushing up of a previous venue that was there, that is now being given the Crane-Yakuza approach. But they're part of a 1,300 chain of facilities. Not all of those facilities are developed to this level. Some of them are much more traditional. But again, it kind of shows the changes that are going on in the Japanese sector.
I was muted there for a minute. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? They continue to just push out. Well, this is an interesting one for me, just that they continue to push out multiple different brands, and we know that Genda does the same thing. But they, think that some level of standardization would be helpful in like crane design and crane layout, and like the mix that you're putting in, the merchandise mix that you're putting in those cranes and the gashapon. So anyway, it is interesting that they continue to roll out new brands within an already pretty significant sized group of brands.
They're going through. I get the feeling that they're like with what we were talking about with Taito a couple of open and shuts back. They are also giving their brand a lick of paint and a brush up towards competing with that monster that's entered the room. Our friends at Taito have more than one chain. So we talked about the Taito stations last time. Now we also need to talk about Bootverse. Bootverse was their concept for a kind of active play, social play, older player mix, less on the amusement, more on the attractions, the pixel floors, the interactive walls, the immersive enclosure experiences. They are spinning this, this particular venue is opening up. This will be, I think, the third in the chain now. So they've been sitting around with 2 facilities open. They've learned a lot of lessons about what the audience wants. They've now launched number 3. 16 attractions in there, many of them off the shelf. Pixel Games is an off-the-shelf attraction that has been pivoted towards their needs. The one thing that I'm fascinated about regarding what they've learned from the Bootverse, rebooting the universe, which is where the name's derivation comes from, approach, is that they're pushing party games. And that smacks to me competitive socializing.
Yeah, there's a really interesting 30-minute video, which I'm just flipping through here about Bootverse. Because there's not a whole lot yet out there because I think they're still trying to experiment. But this to me feels very much like a playground meets Activate. And if you took the 2 and smashed them together, it's a little bit like that.
Missing one important component.
I did not see any F&B, at least in the video, but
there we go. No booze.
Yeah.
And we can't say, and we can't say that's a regional thing because we have examples of competitive socializing already opening up in Japan. Sorry, you were saying?
Well, no, I was just going to say, given the amount of dwell time they're expecting their guests to have here, playing all the different attractions, you would think you'd capitalize on that just to, even if not to increase the dwell time because of the food and beverage, just to increase the per cap.
There's an idea that they could employ that is now being developed by some companies regarding how they can add hospitality to a venue that hasn't normally had a hospitality component. But as a consultant, I'm not going to give them any free consultancy. I'm just going to say there is a solution to that problem, which is going to be a problem if they want to increase their dwell time. It's that Genda moment. And here we have an example of Genda parachuting into an existing facility. This facility was much more of a convenience store that had some entertainment components. It's been totally turned into a Geigo. All of that has been removed. All of the claw machines and the gashipo and the sticker machines have been inserted in with some amusement. And bish bash bosh, we have another addition to the ever-ending Geigo rollout. In the suburbs, though, so we're not stuck in the middle of Tokyo here. We're moving more and more to the other parts of the islands that are important to the Japanese market.
Yeah, just very interesting that they're taking actual corner store real estate. You typically see these in shopping malls and, again, more urban environments. Obviously, in suburbia, you've got to deal with what you've got to deal with in your real estate. But it is interesting to be like basically in a corner store for your cranes.
And it is one of those things that Sega, when they rolled out their Sega facilities in the Japanese market, they had that kind of build. So it is a little bit of a ghost of the previous amusement take-up, just given the Genda seal of approval. Jumping over to China, and iQIYI, the Netflix of China, threw the doors open on their mega facility. It is quite a considerable investment and it's quite a considerable project. We're going to talk about this much more in depth in Sound Off, but the point I really wanted to make here is this is the beginning.
Yeah, this is absolutely the beginning, and will be really interesting to talk about this. I'll hold off other further comments until sound off. But do we know what the square footage or square meters on this is?
No, because it's a split facility. It's not
Yeah.
all indoors. There is some outdoors component to it, and trying to get the Chinese PR people to give us the acreage is like pulling teeth. So maybe we're going to have to call upon the support of one of our viewers or listeners to give us that type of information.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I was just curious to see how the equivalency to Netflix House based on size. So based on footprint. So all right. Well, we'll dig into it more and sound off.
Looking at the video of the walk round, I would say it is 3 Netflix houses for 1 Aichi Island. Rule of thumb. Moving on, and we have Area 254. Facilities already been open for some time, but they have decided to add a considerable amount of new property, real estate to their indoor active entertainment facility to incorporate a much wider or more diverse entertainment mix. They have added or improved upon their ninja course. They've added much more active entertainment, sports related. They parachuted in a Valo arena, and they've added to their amusement mix. This is that example from our previous coverage of saying you can't stand still, especially when you are in a locality that is showing popular interest. So rather than moving to a new facility, they expanded the facility they had, and we know how crowded the Texas market is for entertainment venues.
Yeah. This is interesting. It's like an interesting iteration on active play. I think that I don't know that we. Anyway, what am I trying to say? There's already lots of brands. I don't want to convince somebody not to go and shove something like this into another Texas town. And the area 254, right, is probably the area code, I'm guessing. So not too too creative there. But it looks nice. They've got an interesting mix, at least, that they've put in here. Some slides, ninja course, sports court, ballerina. But we'll see.
It is clear that they have seen how the market is playing, and they've had to pivot themselves away from your trampoline and climbing wall approach that the original facility was more focused on, and have gone for a heavier entertainment mix. But this is a sign of the times, as it were. It was pointed out to me that Fair Game in London that has just gone through acquisition was not the only carnival approach. We also have the carnival component to our friends at Swingers. And it is interesting to see something like this particular facility in the Midlands in the UK offering that mix of carnival style play and themality, offering the mini golf gamification, incorporating even a bit of laser tag and escape rooms in a complete competitive socializing mix. This is clearly aimed at a much older audience than an amusement facility or an FEC would be offering, but it's also developed by a company that has its roots in family entertainment centers in the UK. So this is, shall we say, a new string to their fiddle.
Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty straightforward, standard. I don't mean to disparage it, but it's a pretty straightforward, standard indoor mini golf, creative. I mean, it looks very similar to Holy Moly in the sense that, each hole is themed and it's meant to be kind of a party atmosphere. Or in this case, I guess they'd say a carnival atmosphere. So it seems to me like they're trying to emulate Holy Moly potentially there in the UK, but. Look, it's a good instantiation of indoor mini golf and F&B. So, but yeah.
This is the second in their chain. So they have managed to also keep up with fair games by opening 2 facilities, as you can see. And I would say you're quite right to link this, into the holy moly kind of approach of social entertainment, a nice level of themality that they've learned from their competition, and in a marketplace that doesn't have that many equivalencies at this moment in time. That said, the competitive socializing market seems to be traveling up the spine of the UK, eating everything in its path. We will have to see how this one fares in the mix. Our friends at round 1, it's really confusing to keep up here with this. Some of our viewers will say, haven't you talked about New Jersey in round 1 before? Did you know that there are now 3 round 1s in New Jersey? So yeah, it's maybe they know something that many people don't about how many of this type of facility you can parachute into one regional area. This is a 50,000 square round 1 operation, so nothing to sneeze at. I would still argue that their marketing and promotional positioning is very vague on what this actually offers. I didn't see a sportainment addition to this particular site, though the search engine was catching fire trying to separate all the different New Jersey round 1s from the mix.
250 machines is just absolutely insane.
To be expected, they go heavy on the machines. A lesson that I think our friends at Dave & Buster's are going to have to take from regarding the competition that they're going up against. If you are into your games, 250 gives you a good dwell time opportunity, supported with F&B. You may stay there to try the unusual cuisine that round 1 offers. That said, I also think that if you look at the way that they've laid out their bowling and the other entertainments, they are going for a much more social environment on top of their more traditional amusement mix. But hey, we will wait and see how this one fares. And then our friends at Toca Social, we've been waiting a while for this, their 4th facility. Very important here, their first entry into America, USA. We know that they have plans to announce their entry into the Mexican market soon, but 20,000 square, a number of social boxes, their playing environment, not a direct number on how many are in there. I think it's going to be about 18. And it is now a proven formula for them that they need to roll out in a mix that creates that dwell time that's so important to them moving forwards. I also noticed from some of the renderings for the facility that they put in a lot more amusement than in previous Toca Social sites.
So this is going into, it has gone into Grandscape in Dallas. So Grandscape is the same area I've actually visited. There's an Andretti's, there's a Cosm, there's a you could go down this. So there's a number of other attractions, but there was a Sixes. So Sixes was there, failed like spectacularly, and then that was been shut down. Looking at where it is located, it doesn't look like it's in the old Sixes facility or building. It does, but it is in the same Grandscapes complex. So there's lots of other entertainment. It's a busy complex when I was there, and so ideally they're non-competitive with everything else that's there as well. So we'll have to wait and see. If you can't survive at Grandscape in Dallas, then you probably are not going to be able to make it somewhere else in the U.S.
I call that locality, that area, the equivalent of Las Vegas, really. It is a proving ground. It is a harsh crucible, and it's part of the reasons why Sixes was parachuted into there. I know the space which Sixes used to inhabit is up for grabs by another competitive socializing brand, but hey, again, let's not get too ahead of ourselves. Ball are social. I touched upon this in last year's Sound Off as one of those dark horses entering the competitive socializing and sportainment market. We now had the doors thrown open after a period of soft opening. You see where I'm going. The soft opening allowed them to evaluate what they were trying to offer, and also for some confusion to be built up. Because to be blunt, the way that Ball R Social was sold to many of us was as a much more gamified, Toca Social-esque kind of entertainment experience, maybe not using digital screens, but definitely using gamification technology and such like that. And what we get is a warehouse populated with a number of pitches, active entertainment systems, as in ball kicking procedures to test your skills and improve your skills, and a relatively interesting bar where the parents can cheer on their children. This ain't what I thought Ball R Social was going to be. Maybe the failure is on my part on how I read their release.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly thought that they were going to be much more aligned with like a Toca Social as a competitor there. Man, when I look at some of the square footage usage, it just cringe. I hope they got that space for cheap, because their revenue per square foot is going to struggle. The amount of empty space they have, in addition to just obviously having the pitches, it's going to be an issue trying to generate that type of revenue they need to, again, unless they just got a crazy, stupid, cheap deal on that space.
If they haven't got one of the best deals per square footage, they have created a millstone around their neck. And the way that they've created their play experience, no matter that they may be utilizing FIFA standard football pitches, it's still empty space when it's not being used as a football pitch. And again, there's the issues of you're going to need to have the lockers, you're going to need to have the showers and the toilets, you're going to have some level of support for the players in an energetic game. You're not that social, you're much more stadium. And those models, the business model is slightly different compared to the entertainment sector. But we will wait and see how well they've done their research.
Yeah.
Another venue that has sidled from soft opening, so I've had many people jumping up and down at me saying, why haven't I covered this? Why haven't I covered this? Well, when a company's in soft opening, sometimes they don't want to have too much publicity while they're in soft opening, because that's the learning phase. That is the point where they find out that they haven't got enough lanes in their bowling alley, or that they need to remove one of their mini golf courses, or that the particular attraction they purchased is a piece of junk and they need to replace it with something else. Anyway, our friends at Rivals Social, I always feel that's the wrong way around, but that's just me. They've thrown open officially their 12,000 square. They've come out of their 1.5 to 2 month soft opening period, and they now have their bowling system set up the way they want it. They have their bat ball attraction. They have their arena from our friends at Conduct R. They have their escape room, and they have their putt hub, their mini golf area, as well as Conduct R parachuting in one of the first installations in the UK of their Hot Shots shooting game that we were talking about in our EAG coverage last month. It looks interesting as a facility. I don't think they've blown themselves away on the themality. I think that they've been just trying to get this nailed down as a working business model. I know they've been going through the staffing issues, and they've been working out how the kitchens and the bar issues, because that isn't their comfort zone, as it were. And I would argue that this is feeling a little bit like a test facility or showroom for the Conduct R range, but that's just me being Kevin.
So a couple of things here. First of all, to be fair to us, we have talked about them on here, on the show. So We have mentioned that they are coming, and it may have been on a sound off versus an open and shut, but clear. But look, I actually think that this has a lot of potential. They are doing what we've said needs to happen in the competitive socializing space for a couple of years, which is to combine multiple experiences and attractions into an overall venue where people can come, they can do RC racing, or they can do shuffleboard and putt hub, mini golf, and then come back the next time and do hot shots and battle ball and bowling, and then come back the next time and do AR darts and enjoy some F&B, and every time enjoy some F&B if it's good enough. And so I think it'll come down to operational execution and at the end of the day, like what type of vibe that they're putting off. If it's just a box with a bunch of things in it, then obviously that's not going to be exactly successful. But so far, what's at least visible online seems to be like they've done their work, and they've got a alluring F&B and a great attraction mix so far.
It's an interesting attraction mix. I would need to get into the nitty-gritty to see what the audience in this part of Kent feels about this. I'd like to see what competition they're going up against. It is shooting fish in the barrel regarding the mix that they've produced here, how they're going to handle their pricing, how they're going to handle their special deals, how they're going to handle their downtimes and their uptimes are all of the minutiae that I get into regarding operations. I would point, though, this will be the first deployment of an arena system in the UK away from the Dave & Buster's application, and I will look forward to seeing how well this is used by the target audience. Moving on, and have vast space, populate with mini golf, well, mini putting. So rather than your crazy golf or your putteries or your usual approach to the mini golf experience, we really see Putt Zone creating a short game entertainment environment. Now, I have problems with the entertainment and golf analogies. This has 18 holes, of course, and it's going to depend a lot on the F&B and a lot on the presentation. But so far, the money has been parachuted into this, and it has got the PGA support.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a beautiful facility inside of the space, and if it is meant to be there for I feel like it's a Pop Stroke sort of like elevated mini golf versus pure putting practice, because it does feel mini golfish in there, and they're trying to have like the bar and everything else, but look, it looks like an alluring experience. I still struggle with like revenue per square foot for a building of this size. The air conditioning required and everything else for the space. But look, Nashville is is like desperate for this type of I'll say entertainment. Nashville has historically, the FEC summit went to Nashville a few years ago. I want to say almost 4 years ago, and there was almost nothing for us to go and tour. We toured like a curling facility and like in our big arcade, and it was really hard for us to find, us meaning the committee at the time, to find things to tour. And in the last few years, a number of things have popped up in Nashville now, and so this is, I could see doing very well there as an ancillary to people coming for the music. What are they going to do on during the day before they go out onto Broadway at night to go and check out all the bars and the music and the energy there, right? They're going to go to a place like Putting Zone. So anyway, we'll see how it does. It is still a hefty real estate lift for what they've put inside, but it looks beautiful.
One thing I will add to your excellent points there is that I think one of the things that this has been created for is for corporate events and private hire. I can see the way that has been laid out, that they can run a lot more corporate or private hire bookings than, and there is not a lot of opportunity there for that type of hire, though it is a vast piece of real estate. 18 holes may be standard, but when you put that indoors, especially in not a purpose-built venue, but a venue that has been brought up to the requirements of that game experience. that sport experience, then we need to be mindful. It may not be a model that could be replicated everywhere.
Yeah, I think that's true, and I think it's to your point about corporate groups and large groups that obviously go to Nashville. It's still a massive place for bachelorette parties or obviously hen parties, and so like that stuff happens a lot in Nashville, and so I can see this being just one additional attraction that they go to. And look, 5-star reviews, right? 5-star reviews out of 31 Google reviews. So they're doing something right here. Even so, hopefully that translates to long-term sustainable revenue.
Tiger Woods better watch out. Moving to the shuts and sales and the definitions, we touch upon the chapter protections, the chapter 11s, or the moving into liquidation or administration. We deal with the closes here, facilities that have just closed their door, either giving us a reason or no reason at all. And that includes closing your doors, not just because you're ending your facility, but you're just in the position of being acquired by another operation to be rebranded and relaunched, as we've touched upon in the openings. And those acquisitions are now becoming more and more prevalent because if you can't get it to work, there are a number of corporations that would like to have a go. So jumping straight in, and the UK sees another of its, shall we say, veteran entertainment facilities closing up. It's fallen into liquidation as the media has reported it. The administrators don't really want to go into too much reason for the closure. And there's been confusion. There's the claim that it's still going to be open during the season, but then will close permanently at the end of the year, while other reports have said that the doors are closed and it's not going to reopen. Whatever the truth is, this is the latest in a batch of UK-based regional entertainment venue resorts that have closed down. Most of them showing a pedigree in the 1940s and 50s, most of them outside of the catchment of major cities, most of them really needing some TLC. And this could be a venue which we will suddenly be talking about in opens, the opening components of opening shuts that's been rebranded and taken over. I would argue that it will need a level of investment to bring it up to the quality needed for the sophisticated audience that they're trying to attract. And I don't just mean sophistication in the education, I mean sophistication in the available entertainment that is going to pull them. All of those carnival venues that we've just talked about earlier are going to be targeting this type of audience. I know that there's a very young component to this particular facility. But I would also argue that there are active entertainment facilities within the catchment that offer an equivalent.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but we're seeing lots of closures for these types of theme parks, question mark, really more like local regional amusement parks, I would call them. And
amusement parks.
Yeah.
And obviously, the condition of the venue and the locality, it's already got permission. So any realtor worth his salt will look at this and say, get rid of the machines and let's put some houses up. But we'll wait and see what happens to this particular piece of history that is disappearing. How to break records. We seem to be seeing a lot of this, which is, hey, we opened up in 2024 or 2025 and we're closing down. And again, it's those labor of love, vanity projects, retirement 401 investment style entertainment venues where someone wakes up, says, I like arcade machines. Everybody likes arcade machines. Let's set up a retro arcade brew pub. I'm not entirely sure that is the exact rationale behind this particular facility in Detroit, but to open in 2025 and to close in 2025 with only 40 machines and a media presence, a social media presence, which is worse to terrible, I think I wouldn't be surprised that this won't be taken over by a barcade operator, because if you're going to build something like this, you're going to go larger than smaller. But I wouldn't also be surprised that maybe there could be a salvation plan for the locality rather than the operation.
Yeah, I'll be surprised, frankly, if it does survive. I mean, they were on quarters, the games. They were not on cards. They were not on tokens. They were literally on quarters. So you had to go and bring in cash, go put that cash in to get quarters, and then use that to play the games. And so they would have been better to just charge an admission and put it on free play even, right? I mean, which we know is not a business model that's sustainable, but neither is bring in cash or go to an ATM to get cash to then put into a machine to get quarters, right? So that's where this model was just not going to work. There's a vanity project, and it's sad to see that type of investment go under in less than a year. But like, come on, guys, come on.
Yeah, vanity projects, death of all of us. Showcase, I point this out purely because it's one of those cinema operations that should have pivoted a little bit faster towards cinetainment. It is a multiplex location. It's been going since 1998, and it is closing its doors in Boston. And I'm led to believe that this isn't the last of the Showcase cinema chain to go through this process. But again, it is important to point this out. I am sure someone in the location-based entertainment sector is looking at that real estate and thinking what they can put in there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's. I'm sure this is. I'm sure we will not see something that is just like a grocery store going in there. So I think we'll see this re-envisioned as a new entertainment facility,
or a Dave and Buster's. Not a surprise. Actually, when I walked around this facility and reported back for sound off, I kind of intimated in the tone and sarcasm of my voice that I had a stopwatch running of how long moonshots would stay. Moonshots, for those of you that aren't aware, was the breakaway, well, not breakaway, but the pivot by our friends at Sixes, where if holding a heavy cricket bat and being shot at high speed by cricket balls wasn't alluring to those in the competitive socializing sector, then we will try and pivot and go for a kind of softer version using baseball, using the same fast bat technology, even left the machines where they were. They just threw in a lot more pool table and pivoted from British pub approach to American bar approach with the dining and the cocktails. It's a difficult location if you have a problem brand. This is not where you test a brand to go. It is a place, this particular shopping mall, the Westfields we've talked about before, is quite a strong proving ground for location-based entertainment. You know, just up the street, up the block from there is a Toca social venue, and put this next door to Toca social is chalk and cheese, and linked into the problems that Sixes is finding itself in. It is a surprise it lasted as long as it did.
Yeah, not a surprise at all. It was literally a moonshot, and it was probably further than a moonshot, frankly, in my opinion, when they announced this. And so it's an ironic name for what is an unsurprising ending.
I'm sure Base on Mars was already taken, so they had to go for the moonshot. Kung Fu. Not every closure is a closure based on failure. From all of the reports, all of the reviews, this was a thriving, popular, retro-esque competitive socializing venue, part of a chain of 2 other venues. This particular site sadly ran into the landlord greed scenario, or the landlord realism. The area is very popular, and I'm sure that the competitor retail and hospitality units going into the spaces surrounding this Kung Fu location that had tenure. It had been there since 2015, so it wasn't a new flush of entertainment. It had proven itself. The chain has proven itself, but sometimes when the rent is too high, you've got to fly. And I wouldn't be surprised if our friends there, this particular chain is run by a hospitality restaurateur operation, and I wouldn't be surprised their savvy will mean that they'll find a location very close by at a much more reasonable price point, and they'll be reopening. I am willing to take that bet.
Yeah, I would totally agree. There are other locations in both Fort Worth and San Antonio are crushing it, at least based on the reviews and some of the imagery that's available. So yeah, I would agree. I'm not surprised that we would not be surprised if they pop up somewhere else in Austin.
When I'm doing presentations, I always use the Kung Fu Saloons brand as a kind of boutique retro arcade distinguisher compared to your more traditional barcade and retro arcade kinds of facilities. This was a rent dispute where they voted with their feet, and I think that landlord may rue the day. But anyway, moving on, and winding up, we have a difficult one here. It's the kind of the American equivalent to what we were charting at the beginning of this shut period. A entertainment or attractions park that is in a scenic location, is very seasonally controlled, and is in a part of Delaware where not everyone's going to want to crawl up the side of that mountain and jump in the gondola constantly. So it has a very limited repeat visitation component. They've fallen into some serious debt. They've overextended themselves, and they've fallen into Chapter 11. Whether a white knight's going to come along and save them, or whether this particular location is going to have to go through a major rethink about what it brings to the area and what it can charge and offer as an entertainment venue, we don't know at this early stage.
Yeah, it's too bad. I know we'll dig into it a little bit more in Sound Off, but I'll reserve my comments until then.
Another one we'll touch upon in Sound Off. I staggered across this one due to some individuals pointing me in the right direction. Six Flags had put a lot of investment into their esports components, and then all of a sudden we didn't hear anything about it. I was lucky enough to be able to speak to the very new marketing and media, let's call them executive, that is responsible to answer these questions. They went away and did some digging for me, and they gave me some observation on what's actually happened, which we can go off in more detail and Sound Off.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say here before postponing everything else to Sound Off is that when they first announced these back in 2023, I was highly skeptical that this would actually be a viable business model within a Six Flags, and unfortunately, I happen to be right on that one. I have been actually into the E6 gaming venue in the Six Flags Fiesta Texas location. And it is actually a beautiful facility. It's well done, well appointed. Like the rigs that are in there are excellent. And I was there, to be fair, before the park opened as a kind of a behind the scenes tour. And so it was hard to say whether or not it was being utilized, but I do know there was an upper floor that was definitely not being utilized anymore. And they were really just driving the traffic down on that bottom floor.
We'll give a little bit more granularity to what's actually gone on, because funny enough, the one venue that had the most investment into it, the Fiesta Texas venue, is the only one that survives of the 8 that were actually developed. But hold off on that there. Anyway, we've sold you enough on following up on Sound Off. But if you have any information, please chase us on LinkedIn. Please send the emails. We have some stinger reports out there. We have some entertainment social arenas now flying their way out there. Make sure you're up to date. Anyway, Brandon, that's enough from me. I hope I've touched on everything.
Well, I think we've touched on enough for this open and shut, and looking forward to the nearly complete open and shut ready for next week.
Have a good one.
Bye.
If you run a location-based entertainment brand and want to attract more visitors, check out Radius. They use real-time location data and customized marketing strategies to help brands like yours stand out. Radius can boost your foot traffic and build a loyal customer base. Plus, they're offering a complimentary local market analysis to show you exactly how they can help you grow. Curious? Visit radius.co and ask about your free market analysis. That's RAYDIUS.co.
All right. Well, that was a great open and shut with Kevin, and we had a lot of great things to talk about. And so already looking forward to the next one. I mean, there's so many things happening and so many new interesting things opening up as well. But for this next week, we've got sound off number 110 with Kevin Williams. And this is on Tuesday, February 17th. So just in a couple of days, if you're listening to this on Sunday when it releases. And you know what? That's it. That is a wrap for this week's LBX show. I'm Brandon Wiley signing off. Stay tuned and keep kicking ass.